Right now, you're understanding complex ideas through nothing but sound waves and squiggly lines on a screen. But for most of the time, humans have existed. None of that existed. No words, no grammar, no sentences. So how did our ancestors tell each other danger is coming, or I love you, or follow me? The answer starts not with the mouth, but with the hands. For decades, the leading theory in linguistics was that language began as vocal sound, grunts, slowly refined into words. But since the 1970s, when anthropologist Gordon Hughes revived an old 18th century idea, a growing body of evidence has pointed somewhere else entirely. Gesture came first. Here's the case for it. Researchers studying great apes in captivity found something strange. Chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans could be taught to communicate fairly complex ideas using sign language, but almost none of them could ever be taught to speak, even a single word. Their vocal tracts and brains simply weren't wired for it, but their hands were flexible enough and controllable enough to form intentional signals. In the wild, researchers have found that chimpanzee gestures are far more flexible and situation-dependent than their calls, which tend to be fixed, automatic reactions. A scream is a scream whether the danger is a snake or a leopard. A gesture, on the other hand, can be aimed, timed, and adjusted depending on who's watching. There's a reason for that gap, and it's sitting inside your own brain right now. Scientists have identified a network called the mirror neuron system, brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else perform it. In primates, this system is wired almost entirely around hand movements and certain mouth actions, but not vocal calls. Some researchers believe this mirror system is the ancient scaffolding language was eventually built on top of, and that scaffolding was built for gesture, not sound. There's even evidence this shaped how our ancestors taught each other to survive. In one modern experiment, researchers tried teaching people to make Stone Age tools using only gestures versus using only speech versus using both. The gesture-only method worked almost as well as full spoken language. Some researchers now argue that early tool-making traditions going back over 1 million years may have spread through hand signals and demonstration long before anyone said a word about it. So, if gesture came first, when did the voice finally catch up? This is where it gets genuinely strange, because the fossil record has left us physical clues about a language that no longer exists to hear. Deep in your throat sits a small U-shaped bone called the hyoid, which anchors your tongue and voice box, and it's one of the only bones in the human body not directly connected to any other bone. Its shape and position matter enormously for what sounds a creature is physically capable of making. In 1983, researchers excavating a Neanderthal skeleton at Kebara Cave in Israel found a hyoid bone nearly 60,000 years old, and it was almost identical in shape and size to a modern human's. That alone reopened an entire scientific debate. Could Neanderthals talk? Then genetics added another layer. Every hearing person on Earth carries a gene called FOXP2, which is directly linked to the fine motor control needed for speech. Families with mutations in this gene struggle specifically with grammar and mouth coordination, nothing else. When researchers sequenced Neanderthal DNA, they found the exact same version of FOXP2 that modern humans carry, a version different from every other primate alive. That means whatever mutation gave us the physical capacity for complex speech was already present in the common ancestor we shared with Neanderthals, roughly 300,000 to 400,000 years ago, long before Homo sapiens even existed as a distinct species. So the machinery for speech may have been sitting there for hundreds of thousands of years, but having the equipment isn't the same as having language. For that, you need something else. Symbols. In Blombos Cave, on the southern coast of South Africa, archaeologists uncovered a small piece of ochre stone with deliberate cross-hatched lines drawn on it in red pigment, dated to roughly 73,000 years ago. It's not a picture of anything. It's not decoration on a tool. It appears to be a symbol, a pattern made purely to represent an idea, the oldest known drawing on Earth. The same cave layer contained shell beads, pierced and strung, worn as ornaments, and other pieces of ochre engraved with similar abstract patterns going back nearly 100,000 years. Similar shell beads showed up around the same time at a site called Skull in Israel. And going back even further, researchers found a shell in Java engraved with a deliberate zigzag pattern dated to somewhere somewhere around 500,000 years ago, made not by our species at all, but by Homo erectus, a distant ancestor who never spoke a single word we would recognize as language. Put those pieces together and a strange picture emerges. Long before humans had full grammar, long before anyone could tell a story about yesterday or ask a question about tomorrow, our ancestors were already doing something remarkable, agreeing silently across a group that a certain shape, a certain mark, a certain gesture meant something specific. That's the seed of every language that has ever existed, not sound. Meaning shared between two minds by whatever method was available. So the next time you talk with your hands without even noticing, when you point instead of explaining, when you wave someone over instead of calling out, you're not doing something new. You're running a communication system older than words themselves, one that was already working perfectly hundreds of thousands of years before the first sentence was ever spoken.